Hi, everybody. Welcome to my talk on Beginner's Crash Course to Elasticstack. My name is Lisa Jung, and I'm a developer advocate at Elastic. So today, I'm going to give you a crash course on Elasticsearch and Kibana. And I'm going to kick this off with a question. So who here has ever used the Elasticstack before? So in the chat window, type yes if you have ever used it, and type no if you have never used it. Okay, I'm not sure if the chat functionality is working, but I can't really see anybody answering. But the chances are there are some of you that have never heard of the Elasticstack before. And even so, you may be using a lot of apps with certain features that are powered by the Elasticstack. So for example, if you have ever searched for a ride on Uber, Elastic is the engine that powers the Uber marketplace that connects you to the driver. If you ever had mad cravings for tacos and were searching for open restaurants on Yelp, Elastic is powering that search. So it's hidden under a lot of the apps and websites that you use on a daily basis, which few of them are shown here. So what is the Elasticstack exactly? Oh. Now, if you are a developer working with data, the Elasticstack is a great tool to have on your belt. Now, it consists of 4 products: Beats, Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. And with the stack, you can take data from any source in any format, then search, analyze, and visualize in real time. So some of the most popular use cases for the Elasticstack are logging, metrics, and business analytics. And for example, the Elasticstack is used to store and analyze log data. And a specific example for all the gamers out there, Blizzard uses the Elasticstack to analyze gamer and server events. So if the players experience a slowdown or an error, their monitoring team would use the Elasticstack to figure out what is causing it. Now, it could also be used to gather metrics. And one of my favorite examples is the Mars Curiosity rover, and it sends telemetry, sensor, and photo data into the Elasticstack for analysis. So if someone wanted to know how hot Mars is on an hourly basis, you can go and pull the data. Now, lastly, if you have ever used Tinder, you probably didn't realize that the Elasticstack was helping you find your match. And this is a technology behind using geolocations to match people together. And it's also used to analyze business needs and build custom applications so you could analyze and learn from the data. For example, Tinder relies on the Elasticstack to analyze and predict which people a user will swipe right on, or which people will swipe right on that user, and when there's a match. So all of these use cases are made possible by the Elasticstack. And with a stack, you can take data from any source in any format, then search, analyze, and visualize in real time. Now, it's a collection of 4 products. First, we have Elasticsearch, which is the heart of the Elasticstack. It allows you to store, search, and analyze your data. Then we have Kibana, which is a visualization tool, and it's a UI that helps you visualize and export data in Elasticsearch. Now, in order for us to work with data, we need to get data into Elasticsearch, right? And this is where Beats and Logstash come into play. So Beats are lightweight data shippers that push data into Elasticsearch. And if you need to parse and enrich your data before pushing data into Elasticsearch, then you would use Logstash. So Beginner's Crash Course is a series of workshops. And throughout the series, we'll delve into each product, learn when to use it, and how to use it. So by the end of the series, you can identify which products of the Elasticstack would best serve your use case and know how to get started with these products. And today, I'm going to introduce you to Elasticsearch and Kibana. So this workshop is originally about 50 minutes long, and since this is a 30-minute session, I had to shorten it quite a bit. But I will give you the link to the full workshop video later today, just in case you're interested. But for today, we'll start off by going over a scenario where Elasticsearch and Kibana could come in really handy. Then we'll cover just a little bit of the basic architecture of Elasticsearch, and we'll wrap up by running CRUD operations with Elasticsearch and Kibana. So Elasticsearch is known as the heart of the Elastic Stack, and this is where you could store, search, and analyze your data. So let's go over a scenario where Elasticsearch may come in handy. Now imagine you're the lead developer responsible for building and maintaining an online grocery shop. Now using the search bar, millions of customers will be searching for products that they want to buy. And a great search experience is key to have your customers to buy and keep coming back to your platform. And we want the customers to get fast and relevant results no matter the scale. Now, another important factor in search experience is relevancy. So the whole point of search is finding relevant data fast. And we want to be able to find from brands. But what if a customer wanted to see peanut butter from highest to lowest rated brands? Or what if the customer is searching for sriracha hot sauce and misspells it? Now, we still want to pull up relevant results, even though the customer's spelling doesn't exactly match the product data. So if you're in a situation where speed and relevance of your search is an important aspect of your work, Elasticsearch could come in really handy. So how does it look when Elasticsearch is connected to your app? Well, when a user sends a search request from your website, the request is sent to the server, which sends a search request to Elasticsearch. Then Elasticsearch finds and sends the results back to the server, which processes the info and sends the results back to the browser. So let's go even one step further. So through your app, you're collecting a lot of data, such as order information, purchase history, and the list goes on. And we want to make use of that data. So for example, we want to know what was the revenue for the last month, or which products are most popular. To answer these questions, you can enter relevant data in Elasticsearch, so you could search and analyze your data to answer your questions. But data is so much easier to understand if you could visualize it. And this is where Kibana comes in, which helps you visualize and manage your data. Now think of Kibana as a web interface to data stored in Elasticsearch. It allows you to search, view, and interact with Elasticsearch data. So if you had a question about what is the most popular product, or what was our revenue last month, you would enter relevant data in Elasticsearch, and from Kibana, send requests to Elasticsearch to get and analyze the data you want. Now, on top of that, you'll be able to create a dashboard with Kibana, so you could visualize data in a variety of charts, tables, and maps. And this way, you can get insights more easily and be able to share that with your stakeholders. So if you're in a situation where you need to analyze and visualize data in Elasticsearch, Kibana will come in really handy. So now that you understand when to use Elasticsearch and Kibana, we'll move on to the basic architecture of Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch is a powerful search and analytics engine, and it's known for its distributed nature, speed, and scalability, and this is due to its unique architecture. So when Elasticsearch is up and running, you now have an instance of Elasticsearch, also known as Node, and each node has a unique ID and a name, and it belongs to a single cluster, and we'll get to what that is in a little bit. Now, when you start up a node, a cluster is formed automatically, and you can have one to many nodes in a cluster. And these nodes are distributed across separate machines, but they all belong to the same cluster and work together to accomplish a task. So let's really bring this concept home. Now think about a team that you have been a part of, and your team consists of multiple members who all work together to accomplish a common goal. And your team could divide and conquer by assigning each member one or multiple roles. And these are the roles that you're going to specialize in. Now, your team members may work in different buildings, but you all still belong to the same team. And this analogy directly applies to nodes in a cluster. So for example, nodes are members of a cluster that share a common goal. And nodes are distributed across separate machines, but they're still part of the same cluster. Now, nodes are assigned to one or multiple roles. And one of the roles that a node could be assigned to is to hold data. And that is what we'll be focusing on today. So data is stored in Elasticsearch as documents. And a document is a JSON object that contains whatever data you want to store in Elasticsearch. So let's go back to our online grocery shop example. Now, we're helping our customers to search for grocery items online. So we need to store grocery data in Elasticsearch. Now, a document for a grocery item would look like this. So in a JSON object, it contains a list of fields or key value pairs. So for example, it has the name of the product, the category it belongs in, its brand, and its price. Now, things are so much easier to find when you group them in a logical manner. And the documents that share similar traits and are logically related to each other are grouped into an index. So for example, documents of clementines and carrots will be grouped under the produce index, and documents of Malbecs and IPAs will be grouped under wine and beer index. So to sum it up, indices are used to group documents that are related to each other, so we know where to find certain information. Okay, so now that you understand the basics of Elasticsearch, we're going to move on to the tutorial, and we'll finally get to play with Elasticsearch and Kibana. Now, the goal of this tutorial is to get familiarized with CRUD operations. So in other words, how do we create, read, update, and delete a document from Elasticsearch? So to do this, we're going to use Elasticsearch and Kibana. Now, there are multiple options for accessing these products. So one option is to use Elasticsearch and Kibana hosted on Elastic Cloud. And it handles all the heavy lifting of managing the stack, so you can really focus on building your product. Now, you get a free 30-day trial, and there's no credit card required, and the trial expires on its own. And I find that for beginners, it's easier and faster to get started on Elastic Cloud. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. So here we have a link to the GitHub repo for today's workshop. So Shurya, would you please drop this link in the chat? Now, once this link is in the chat, go to this link and have this pulled up. And you will see this on your screen. So this repo contains all the resources that are shared during this workshop, and the slides and the recording of the full workshop is included here as well. Now, if you scroll down to the resources section, you'll see the link to free Elastic Cloud trial, and you'll right-click on that and open the link in a new tab. And the link will take you to the free trial page. Now, I'm going to breeze over this setup because I don't expect you to set this up during the presentation. And I just want to show you what you need to do. So if you want to try this out on your own, you can watch the recording and get started. Now, to get going, enter your email and click on Start Free Trial. And once you do that, it'll ask you to go to the email account you signed up with and verify your email. So go to your inbox and click on Email from Elastic, then click on Verify and Accept button. And it'll prompt you to set a password. And once you set your password and log in, it'll take you to this page where you'll click on Start Your Free Trial. Next, you'll select the Elastic Stack. And when you do that, you'll see this drop-down menu where you can configure your settings. Now, if you look under Select Hardware Profile, Elasticsearch offers several deployment templates for different use cases and workload. Now, each template selects the appropriate cloud hardware configuration for different needs. But if you're just getting started or don't quite know your needs yet, then go with the recommended I/O optimized option. Then you would choose the cloud provider of your choice. So let's say you have an app and you want to integrate Elasticsearch. So if your app is running on Google Cloud, you don't want Elasticsearch running in a different cloud provider because that'll cause latency issues. But for what we're about to do, it doesn't matter which one you choose, just select one. Then select the region close to you and select the latest version of the Elastic Stack, which at the moment is 7.11.1. Now, if you scroll down, you can name your deployment to whatever you want. I name mine Beginner's Crash Course. Then click on Create Deployment. And once you do that, you'll get your deployment credentials. And you'll need this when you add data to Kibana. So either download the credentials or save it somewhere else, as these are only shown once. Now, when you click on download or continue without downloading, it'll create your deployment and load Kibana. And once everything is loaded, click on Open Kibana. And after that, both Elasticsearch and Kibana are ready to go. So we're going to pull up the Kibana console now. So when you advance to the next page, click on Explore on My Own option. And it'll take you to this page here. So click on the menu icon in the upper left corner and scroll all the way down to Management section and click on DevTools. Then it'll take you to the Kibana console. So click on Dismiss and delete the default query shown here. And now we're ready to use Kibana to send requests to Elasticsearch. Okay, so before we get started with the tutorial, I'm going to get organized here real quick. So I have two windows open side by side. So on the left, I have the Kibana console open. And on the right, we have the workshop repo open. Now let's go to the browser where we have Kibana open. It's divided into two panels. On the left is where we enter requests that you want to send Elasticsearch. And on the right is where you'll see the response. So by now, you know that documents are grouped logically into an index. And as a best practice, we're going to create an index first. So let's go back to our repo and scroll down to the console. Make sure to select it and send. Now, when you see acknowledge true, it means that an index called favorite candy has been created. Okay, so now that we have an index, we're going to index some documents. And this time I'm using index as a verb to mean that we're storing documents in Elasticsearch. So let's scroll down to index a document section. Now, when indexing a document, you could either use post or put. And you would use post if you want Elasticsearch to auto-generate an ID for your document. And the syntax you follow is post followed by name of the index, then document endpoint, followed by the JSON object with whatever data that you want to store in Elasticsearch. So in our example, what we're saying here is post in favorite candy index the following document, and our document has fields called first name and candy. So let's copy and paste that. Make sure to select it and send. Now you'll see a 201 response, which says in favorite candy index, a document with an auto-generated ID has been created. Okay, now we're going to turn to our repo and scroll up a little bit here. Now earlier we said when indexing a document, both HTTP verbs post or put can be used. Now we just went over post, so we'll move on to when you would use put to index a document. So scroll down to put. So you would use put if you want to assign a specific ID to your document. And a time where you might want to use this is when you're indexing data with a natural identifier. So for example, let's say you're indexing patient data where each patient has a unique ID. And documents may be easier to work with if it had the same ID as a patient ID rather than an auto-generated ID that has no meaning. So it's easier to keep everything uniform across multiple data sources. Now this time we're going to use index to we're going to index a couple more documents using put. So if you look at the repo, you'll see that syntax is put followed by name of the index, then document endpoint, and ID that you want to assign to this document. So for our example, we're saying put in favorite candy index the following document and assign it an ID of 1. So let's copy and paste that into our console. Make sure to select it and send. Now you'll see that document with an assigned ID of 1 has been created. Now pay attention to this version number here, which is 1 at the moment. We're going to go what that is in a bit. Okay, so let's index a couple more documents. Now I'm going to copy and paste the request that we just sent and paste it twice below. And I'm going to, Rachel's favorite candy is Rolo. And I'm going to assign this an ID of 2 and send that. And you'll see that document 2 has been created here. And let's do the same for Tom, whose favorite candy is Kit Kat. Now I'm going to give this an ID of 3 and I'm going to send it. And you'll see that document 3 has been created. So now that we have indexed some documents, I want to send the request to see the content of the document that has been indexed. Now, this is the read part of the CRUD operation. So turn to your repo and scroll down to read section. And the syntax you're going to follow is get followed by name of the index, then document endpoint, and ID of the document that you want to retrieve. So in our example, we're saying get from favorite candy index, a document with an ID of 1. So let's copy and paste that. And I'm going to paste it below John's information, which is document 1. Let's select it and send. Now you'll see that document 1 has been retrieved. And if you look under source, you'll see the content of the information that we indexed earlier. So this GET request is a great way to check whether our CRUD operations have worked or not. Okay, so let's scroll down to update. And there will be times where you'll want to update an existing document. So for example, let's say John originally liked Starburst, but he changed his mind. His favorite candy now is M&Ms. So let's go back to our repo. And the syntax you're going to follow is post followed by name of the index, then the update endpoint, and ID of the document that you want to update. Now in a JSON object, please note that there's a doc included as context here. And what this is telling you is to only update the fields specified within the inner bracket here. So if you look at our example, what we're saying here is post in favorite candy index. I want you to update document with an ID of 1. Please note that I only want to update the field candy with M&Ms. So let's copy and paste that right below John's information here. Make sure to select it and send. Now you'll see that document 1 has been updated. And if you look at version number, it's now 2. So what the version number is telling you is how many times a document has been indexed, updated, or deleted. So since we started, we indexed a document with John's information, and then we updated the information with M&Ms, the version number is now 2. So let's just make sure document 1 has been updated correctly. So let's go back to the GET request that we sent for document 1. Make sure to select it and send. Now you see that if you look under source, John's favorite candy now is M&Ms. Now, last but not least, what if we want to delete a document? So that one is super simple. So go down to your repo to delete, And the syntax you're going to follow is delete followed by name of the index, then document endpoint, and ID of the document that you want to delete. So in our example, we're saying delete from favorite candy index document with an ID of 1. So let's copy and paste that below the M&M request that we just sent. And we're going to select and send. Now you'll see that document 1 has been deleted and the version number is now 3. And last but not least, we're going to double check to make sure it has been deleted. So let's send a GET request. Then you'll see a 404 error, which says document 1 is not found, which totally makes sense because document 1 no longer exists. Okay, so those are all the questions all the requests that I got for you. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat here.
If any of the attendees have any questions for Lisa, you can drop them in the questions box and I'll convey it to her.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, now I'm seeing the chat box now. Okay. Wasn't it crazy when my green screen just dropped in the middle of my talk? I was just like, oh my God.
No problem, no problem.
Sorry about that, everybody. Does anybody have any questions I can answer? I know it's just like so hard to ask questions in this like big virtual setting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, going once.
So I don't think there are any questions as of now. We can wait for a couple of minutes and we'll see if there are any questions.
Sure. So while we're waiting, why don't I make some announcements? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, sure. No issues.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so if you like this workshop, I have more in the series for you. So the series started back in December of last year, and parts 1, 2, and 3 are currently available. So on your screen, you'll see a link to a GitHub repo. So Shreya, would you please drop the link to the table of contents in the chat? Now, this repo contains a table of contents for all the workshops that have taken place thus far. Now, you can access all the videos, presentations, and resources to move forward. Now, I currently give this live workshop in the US time zone. However, I will be continuously updating this table of contents, and everything is free. So if you want to continue on, you can always go to this repo. Now, lastly, if you have any questions about Elastic, the discussion forum is a great place to get your questions answered. And we have a community of developers and developer advocates that answer questions on this platform. So feel free to post your questions here. And last but not least, I often blog about Elasticsearch. So if you prefer to learn by reading instead, be sure to check out my blog. And that is a wrap for me. Do we have any questions in the Q&A at all?
We do not have any questions as of now. So
okay, no
I
worries.
guess we'll wrap up the session.
Right.
Thank you so much for the workshop, Lisa. I'm sure all the participants that have joined us today would love to explore more about the Elastic Stack and the features it offers. It was an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. So I request all the so we have a question. Elastic versus a regular document database.
Okay.
So could you just compare between the two, how Elastic is way better than a regular document database?
Sure. So Elastic is actually a search and analytics engine. So it really specializes in customizing the relevance of your search. So it gives you a lot more control on how to design your search experience for your users. And for example, if you want your search experience to be smart. So how do you do auto-completion? How do you correct for spelling mistakes? How do you make sure that you get the most relevant data that the user is searching for, as well as what you want your users to see? So when it comes to that, Elasticsearch has lots of tools out of the box that would help you get going in that. Anything else?
Yes. So are there any other questions? Oh, I just... Okay, so this Shreya Satap that is asking current apps that use Elastic. So are there any current applications that use Elastic?
There are so many. So for example, actually, let me go back to the slide. So these are actually few examples of all the apps and websites that use Elastic. So I've mentioned Uber earlier, Yelp, also Tinder. And when you're searching for a repo on GitHub, Elasticsearch is actually behind that. So,
okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think there are any other questions.
All right.
Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, Lisa. Once again, I, on the behalf of entire SheHacks team, would like to thank you for joining us, and it was an amazing session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Bye, everybody.
So I'll